So what we've got is this section. If I just go back to my channel box, remember I've got this bit here hidden. Now the problem is there's this V shape cut out of this. So what I want to do is work on this bit, and we'll just turn on the X-ray. I actually want to just cut in this shape. Now, for simplicity, so that I'm not doing everything twice, I'm going to go into face mode, drag select exactly half of this, and just hit delete. This way I can just make half and then just duplicate it over, so fairly simple. We'll come down to the modeling toolkit and we'll use our multi-cut tool again. And I'll go from this edge here, so I'll just click once on this dot, and you can see that's created a little dot there. And what this is going to do is let me draw in a shape, like so. So I'll just undo that, because what I want to do is just make a nice smooth line, roughly to about here. So I'm going to now click once there. You can see that's automatically filled in a nice straight line, and then I'll hit enter. And I'll hit Q, which is just the select tool, to get out of my modeling toolkit. The way to be aware of is, currently my cursor is just a regular cursor, which is when I'm in Q. If it's anything else, you can see all these different tools will give you different icons, but if I'm in anything else other than this, then it means I currently have a tool selected, and that could cause you problems. So just be aware of that. Just look out for your cursor always looking like a normal cursor. That's what you're trying to do. I'll turn off the X-ray. So we can see there it's produced a cut in the front section. And again, I don't want to have to do this twice. I don't want to have to make one at the front and one at the back. So I'm just going to go into face mode, drag select half, just double checking I've got half. So I haven't here. I'm just going to hold down shift to add that polygon to the selection. And I'll isolate this just to double check. You can see I've got exactly half selected. So with that half selected, I'm going to hit delete. So that we're just working on this front bit. And in order to create this indent, which is what we're trying to do at the moment, I'm going to select these edges and delete them. There's various ways about going about what I'm doing. I think this way is probably a cleaner way, because what it lets me do now is select these edges. So just the inside edges, just these ones. So you can see what I've selected there. You know what, looking at this model, I don't actually want these faces at the base at all, because it's all going to be hidden. We're not seeing the underside, so I'm actually just going to delete these ones. Alright, so with this piece selected, hold down D, snap it. So now I'm going to mesh, mirror, options. I'll just reset this. You want to make sure, so it says X, which is the red. We know that X means red, and currently it's set to negative. So positive is the angle, the direction the arrow is pointing. So this way is positive, and this way is negative. We want it to mirror in this direction, so positive. And the merge threshold, I'm just going to change to custom. Now when I hit apply, that just mirrors over. You can see if I drag select a vertex, I've only got a single vert, so it's actually merged those verts. Just the half there. So that's worked well. That's done what I've wanted. If I jump into the front view, this angle I'm happy with, but what I want to do is just create a triangle in there. So various ways to do that, but in edge mode, I usually go into the append to polygon tool. So mesh tools, append to polygon, click on that edge, and then click on that edge and hit enter. So that's created that shape I want. Now I will double click that edge to get the inside edge, hold down Control to deselect that section. So that's just given me this entire inside edge. I don't really want those ones either, so I actually just want this shape. And so the problem is it's just this hard edge. It'll look a lot nicer if it has some geometry. So I'm just going to my modeling toolkit, again with just this edge selected through there, and extrude. Click on the power symbol and just drag that back a little bit. Now with that still selected, I'm hitting R to get the scale tool. Grab the middle just orbit so I can select that middle bit and just scale those in just a little bit. Because what that does, and I'll also scale in X as well. Just bring those together. So what that does is just make this edge I've created a little bit more visible. And I might just grab the W, the move tool, and just move those back a little bit to make sure we can see all of that. So that creates this shape that we want. We're seeing this weird bit of geometry from this this face here that we've created. To clean that up, I can just select these two edges and just go Mesh Display, Soften, Soften Edge. Now when I deselect it, that's that problem. It was just new geometry is created with a hard edge, which stands out, so that looks a bit better. Okay, so I'm not worrying about the back side for now. Once I've finished all of this section, we'll just duplicate this over to create the other half. Just drag select, so selecting the blade, drag select the top and then control drag those ones to deselect the bottom. So I've only got the top section there. I'll just extrude with the powered symbol and go straight up. And I'm happy to do it like that, just to have it intersecting and going straight through the body. You can see we've got the same display issue happening. In this case, that new geometry has all been smoothed. What I want is these two edges on both sides to be displayed, so Mesh Display, Harden Edge. So we display that as a sharper edge, which looks a lot better. Alright, so getting there, all we need is this section, which should be really straightforward. This will extrude out of this bit in here. So what I'll do is just create the general overall shape and then just push in to create these bits. I think it's probably going to be the most straightforward, so let's go with a curve tool. I'm just going to create, let's say, 2/3. So about a third of the way through and then another third of the way through and then to the end. And enter and hit G to repeat that curve tool for down here. So at the start, a third of the way, a third of the way, and then ending up here. We're trying to make this flow all the way up to this top section up here. And hit enter. Now, shift select, so I've got those two curves selected. You can see here, these two curves are selected. We'll go Surfaces Loft. Come into the channel box, come down to Tessellate, and let's try 8. We want enough geometry now. So 8 looks good, it gives us a nice smooth bend. 16, it's a little bit smoother, it's probably fine. And now I can actually work with this U line, so the V number. So not the U line, the V line, the number here. If I type in 6, 4, actually I think what I want, 1, 2, 3, so I'm going to need at least 5, which gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges, and specifically 3 in the middle. So that's really good, so I'll go with that. Let's just now check in our front view and grab that curve. I'll turn on X-ray. Grab that curve, so not the geometry, the actual curve, which is still live. Go to Control Vertex, drag that edge, and just adjust it to match our reference image, the same as this one, control vertex. So I'm just holding down the right mouse to select the control vertex. So that adjusts, turn off that wireframe, go back to object mode and select, don't need to select anything, we'll go edit, delete all by type history. And let's just incremental save. File, save scene as 4. So we can kill off these curves, just deleting those. And we'll just quickly create this little bending section. Okay, so what I want to do is double select each one of these curves, these edge loops, come into the channel box and, the modeling toolkit, and hit bevel. And I actually want to make 2 segments for each one. I also want to increase the fraction so it's fairly dramatic. Probably like that, so a fair bit of space. And then I'm going to grab the center line for each one of those. W. And now, what we'll do, just look behind it, it's easier to see up here. With these center lines selected, I'm going to hold down D and V and snap my pivot to here. So now I can use the rotate tool, and I can rotate these straight out on the X. And so by creating those double loops through there, that's giving me this fairly sharp shape of this. So drag those out. Actually, I'll undo. I actually don't want to go straight out on the X, straight out like this. I'm just going to orbit the camera and go in all directions at once, because I actually want to go slightly this way. So I'm dragging in multiple directions. So you want to be careful you don't go all over the place, and I'll just undo. Just carefully drag up just a little bit. You can see what that's doing from this angle is this one, these are increasing the amount, so it's giving me a slight upwards bend. Probably want to go a little bit further, maybe like that. You can, when we deselect, you can see the effect that that's having on the shape, which looks pretty cool. I won't do the same thing. You can see here, the same thing I did up here, I created this bevel, which gives it this nice flat edge. So if I just go into edge mode, we'll just double select, just hit Q, double select this ring. Actually, I'll turn on the screen ambient occlusion. It just creates a little bit of shadowing. It just makes it a lot easier to see what you're working with. So that's this button. Just creates this little bit of shadow. Just holding down Shift and double clicking each one of those top loops. So these top loops are selected. And the reason I've done that is I want to bevel. I'll click bevel. I'm just going to hold down Control and click on the word fraction and slowly drag. So holding down Control lets me do that very small. Just make a small bevel in there. And now when we come back to object mode and deselect, we've got this sort of wing effect. It's not exactly the same as that, but it's close. It sort of does the effect. It would probably look cooler if I made these span out more. So I think the problem with this image compared to the reference image is I've got these edge loops just too close. These actually come all the way out to the edge, which would be pretty easy to fix. What I want to do is just have this top one not actually have that valley. You can see this, it's got a nice flow from the top peak. From this top peak it flows straight out to the edge. So I'm just going to select that edge loop and just go mesh, edit mesh, delete edge vertex. It's important that I do this instead of simply hitting delete. Because what this will do, if I just hit the delete key, it does get rid of that. But it's actually left all of these vertices behind, which is really bad. So I'll undo that. Control Z. So I've got my edge selected. What happens if I go delete edge vertex, it gets rid of those leftover verts. So now when I select it, it gives me a straight line. I go into vertex mode, I don't have these leftover verts. So that's a bit closer to the reference. It's not exactly the same, but looks pretty cool. I'll work with this. Just finishing off these sections now. We just need to make them three-dimensional, so they're just flat planes at the moment. If we look at the reference, it comes back to the center point. So with this, what I can do is grab I'm just trying to grab just this bottom control loop, this edge loop, all the way through the bottom. I'm just deselecting these top sections. And I'm going to, once again, move my pivot point to here. So again, I'm holding down D and V in the middle mouse. I'm going to rotate in all directions at once. Clicking on the sphere and just rotating this way. You can see it's having a lot of rotation down here, but not a whole lot of rotation up there, which is exactly what I want. So I'm trying to connect this to the blade. So I'm just going to keep doing that, rotate a bit further. So that's connecting to the blade now. A bit more like this. It's probably a bit too far actually. You don't want to go right up to the blade. Just looking at that reference image. So you probably want to like that. Now with that still selected, I'm going to go into the Move tool and click Extrude. Click the power button. Just drag that back a little bit. Actually, what I'll do here is drag this all the way back. And what I want to do is select all of these verts and align them with this blade. And the way I can do that, if I just turn on the edges, and hit W, I can hold down V for snapping, and this will snap. I can snap it with a particular vert like I have been. So I'll undo, but what I'm actually doing here, and this might seem a bit tricky if you're new, but what I want to do is snap it all in line, but I only want to move them in the Z. I only want to move them this way. I don't want to move them up or across. You can see when I select any of these angles, the arrow changes to yellow. That means it's locked in that direction. So if I select the blue, so I'll do that again. Currently it's selected, the center is yellow, so it will move in all directions. If I select the blue, it will only snap along that blue axis, the Z, which is depth. And so now if I hold down V, which is just our snap to pivot point, snap to point, I hold down V, and if I move my cursor over any vertice, it'll snap in line with that vertice, but only in the Z. So what that does is that snaps it exactly in the middle. But we can see this has maintained its shape, which is not what I want. I want this to, every single vert to align with the middle. So here I'm going to go into my tool settings. It's this icon. Just merge this, dock this over here. So my tool settings. Currently it's set to world. So currently what I want to do is use my snap settings. And I want to turn off, this needs to be set to world, which it is. Just make sure this is set to world. I want to turn off retain component spacing. So what that means is the spacing between these components selected, so all of these verts, they won't be retained. So with retained spacing turned off and this set to world, and with my Z active, so this needs to be yellow and no blue, yellow. And with pivot point turned on, so I can click that button or I can hold down the V key, either way. What happens now is it snaps with anything along the vertex, the Z. So if I move my cursor by holding down the scroll wheel button, the middle mouse, you can see it's snapping in perfect alignment with these verts, or I can snap it with these verts. And what I want to do is snap it with the center of the blade, so any of these verts. So I'm just holding down the scroll wheel and snapping along here. What we can see has happened is every single vert that I have selected is now perfectly aligned with the center of the blade. So I know that one's a little bit more complex. You may need to just double check with your lecturer if you can't follow along. But hopefully I've explained that clearly enough that you can actually just do what I've done. So that's a very useful tool to be able to snap in alignment. Let's just turn off my edges. So at this point, if I hold down D to move my pivot point and hold down V, I'll snap my pivot. We just need to turn off, I don't need the tool settings, that's fine, but the problem was I had my snap to pivot point turned on. So because I had that clicked on, when I hold down the V key, I'm actually turning that off, and so it's no longer snapping to verts. So I just need to remember if that's on or off. So I'm holding down D and V and snapping to this center point. Now what I want to do is merge this in the blue, which is Z, and not in that direction, which is positive. I want to go in this direction, which is negative. Mesh, mirror, options. We want to snap in the Z, which is the blue, and in the negative, which is this direction. So Z, negative, apply. Only issue now is we've got this hole here, but looking at the reference, it doesn't actually do anything, it just connects to the blade. So a quick easy way is in object mode with this single piece selected. I'm going to go mesh, fill hole, and it just fills that hole. Now, really best practice would be to clean this up. So I'll quickly demonstrate that. You can get away with just leaving it if you're happy with that. But if I just isolate select, what I mean by clean up, this is called an n-gon. So it's a polygon, this face here is a polygon with more than 4 sides. And basically that's bad. Hopefully in class that'll be explained in a bit more detail. But the quick way to clean that up is just go into the modeling toolkit, grab the edge tool, and just go through. You can see here I've got 2 verts. I'm selecting the top one and top one to there, and enter. Top one, the bottom vert of that loop to the bottom vert of this loop and hit enter. And likewise with this. So we just go through, oops. So that one didn't work. What's happened there? Okay, I'll just undo. Very important that you select the vert you want, the correct vert. It's this one to this one, and hit enter. Okay, that's worked this time. This one to this one. You can click and drag, but what I want is to make sure that snaps to that point. It's just best practice. If you're completely new to 3D, it may seem a bit confusing why we're doing this. Probably seems like a bit of extra work for no real benefit, but this gives us significant benefits down the track. It's when you start smoothing, it'll be really important if you're bringing this into a game engine. So just undo that, I had a problem. It's just really important with this tool to be very careful each time you use it to check that you've made clean geometry. Now, if you're really struggling with this, if it's just not working, I would say at this point, don't worry about it. But it's certainly worth me showing you, especially if it makes a lot of sense, if you know what you're doing. You see it wasn't that hard, it only took a moment to quickly clean up that geometry. I've just noticed I've got some issues down the end here, and it looks like it's ended up a bit messy when I've merged them. Quickest way, probably the best way really to fix that is to rebuild it. So in the front view, I'm just going to use the multi-cut tool, and what I'll do is pick a point about here and draw a line straight through. So by clicking a point, holding down the shift and holding down my left mouse to drag, I'll basically pick a section that selects all of the end and just hit Q to get out of that, and so that's created this loop. You see this loop all the way around. So back into the front view, just drag select, quickly select the end, and then hold down Control and deselect everything else. So just select that and hit F to focus, and you can see I've just got that end selected. I'm just going to hit delete. You seem to just have this issue here, this edge. Let's just focus in on that. Now we've got a clipping issue here, so you can see the viewport is clipping. This is pretty common. It's just the clipping is set to higher value. So all you do in the perspective view, usually this is only an issue in the perspective view, you select the current camera, which is the perspective camera. So this button up here, select camera. We can see if we look in the attribute editor, we've got the perspective camera selected. So in the attribute editor with this camera selected, by clicking this button, we look at the clipping planes. In the near clip plane, I'm just going to put a 0 in it to lower the value. You can see that fixes the problem. So I can zoom right in now. Same thing happens if you're zooming out too far away and the object starts to clip. You can increase the far clipping plane. That's usually caused by an issue with scale. So in this case, we're zooming right in on a very small object, and Maya's not happy about that, so I've just increased the clipping plane to deal with it. So I focus in these two edges, and I'll hit Control and Delete on the keyboard, which is the keyboard shortcut for delete edge vertex. So Control and Delete. And click on those. It's actually not worked. What's happening here? Let's go into vertex mode. So I think what's happening here is if I go into face mode and drag select those, it's got a face selected on the inside. So if you ever get this problem, going into face mode and selecting those and hitting delete will fix it. And so that's just chopped off the end, like so. And I'm just going to fill that hole. Double click that edge loop and go fill hole, mesh, fill hole. It does create an abrupt end there, but I'm okay with that. And quick cleanup. Let's just go into vertex mode, my modeling toolkit, multi-cut tool, and we'll just quickly but carefully connect to these edge loops. Just need to zoom in. Sometimes with this tool you need to change your view for it to work. Click those edges, that's working. You can see there it didn't quite get the edge, so I'll just undo. Just make sure you're on the edge. So it should only be a single square there. Click the opposite edge. It's not working. That one's not happy. Let's try a different angle. There we go. So often clicking a different angle with this multi-cut tool. Same with the target weld. If it's not behaving, just try orbiting. clean up. And we might just do top and bottom there. Done. Turn off hide select. So what I'll do is insert an edge loop. So use the multi-cut tool. I'll go from here. I'm just going to hold down Shift, click and drag, left mouse, drag, and that's just inserted an edge loop all the way through. So now I'll grab that edge loop by double clicking, hold down Shift, double click that side, and move it up, but more importantly scale in all directions. Actually move it down. So it's not matching perfectly with the reference image, but it's a nice way to quickly clean up that section so it connects. So this section is the same issue as this. What I want to do is DV, connect it here, and we'll use our mirror options, mirror it in the Z, in the negative, so it's going this way, and hit apply. Now that's done some weird stuff. It looks kind of cool, but it's not actually what I wanted. I'll just undo that mirror. Problem is these edge loops are all on the same plane, and so it's joining them and deleting those faces. So I'm going to grab all of those ones and just very slightly move them in the Z this way a bit. And so now let's try that mirror with the same settings, mesh mirror. Because I've moved them apart, there's a bit of a gap there. Because I didn't select that inside one, that's joining nicely. It's pretty cool. Now we select it, mesh, fill hole. Fills up that gap. Modeling toolkit. Just clean that up. Always in the habit of having nice clean geometry with no n-gons. N for number. More than 4 sides is not good. These are actually n-gons as well, so we could probably go from here to here. Oops, multi-cut tool, try that again. Here to here. And then from here to here to here. And just orbit around, double check, no issues. I'm worried about that one. There we go, there's a problem. You can clean that up if you've accidentally made some messy geometry, and that's happened down here as well. Target weld, connect there to there. It's very easy to clean things up. And I'm just drag selecting to make sure I've only got one. Just making sure I have actually cleaned this up nicely. So they're all single verts, and that's good to go. Okay, so just about finished. The front, if we look at reference, has sort of gemstone. And we could look at doing this with geometry, or we could just make that as a texture. But the main thing is this gemstone. So we'll jump into the front, turn on X-ray, and this one's very easy. We'll create polygons, make a cube. Focus in on that. If I just rotate this, I'll hold down J and rotate it 90 degrees. You can see in the channel box, sorry, 45 degrees. Now hit R. I don't like my tool being rotated, so I can come into the tool settings and reset that to world. Just scale that down. Yeah, what I actually want with this cube, I come into the channel box where I've created the cube, back to polycube 1. I actually want a subdivision in each direction, which will let me, let's just isolate this cube. Let me select each vertex on either side. I'm just hitting the scale tool and scale them out. Let's take a look. It's probably fine, really, just like that. I don't need to do too much there. I was considering chopping, so if you wanted to, you could add some loops through there to make that a stronger sort of gem shape. What I might do is just grab that inside edge loop. So let's just isolate this. Oops. Grab this thing, isolate select. What I wanted was this edge loop. Select that by double clicking and scale out uniform. So it creates a better sort of gemstone type effect. Alright. Finally, let's just mirror this over. So DV, snap that there. We're mirroring in negative Z and hit apply. And these two, let's go mesh combine. And I'll just modify center pivot. So my pivot's up here. And what I actually want to do is move that pivot, hold down D and V and middle click to move my pivot to here. So that now when I mirror, this one is in the positive X. So we want X positive, so we're going in this direction. Hit apply. And because the pivot point was here in the exact center, it's mirrored that object perfectly. And look, that's basically it. I'm just going to save as. And we'll get rid of the reference. So that's essentially the modeling done. Some adjustments could be made. I'm not super happy with this shape. Let's just quickly go to the modeling toolkit, insert an edge about here. I'll grab that edge by double clicking, grab the scale tool and bring that right in. Fair bit. Bring it down a bit. And then we'll grab this edge, bring it down, scale it in. Maybe not down so much. And this vert probably won't matter, so I'm not seeing it. Looking at this, if I elongate this in this direction, just eyeballing that, it's matching the elongated sword hilt that I kind of like. Not to reference, and most swords won't have this very elongated sword, but it does look cool. And look, that's about it. We could add this bit of extra detail quite easily if we wanted. I mean, that's simply throwing in a cube. You just sit there, cube, drag it up. Let's just turn on X-ray, scale it down, turn off X-ray, and let's just scale this inwards this way. And look in the front. What we want to do here is insert an edge. So I'll undo. I'll use the modeling toolkit, but I'll insert an edge holding down shift, and I'll do, so I don't need to hold down shift, just click and drag from outside. And I want to get that same angle as the blade behind it. Now face mode, I'm going to drag select and delete. Probably grab these two faces now. Oops, R for scale tool, and just bring those in a little. So that's that extra bit of detail. I mean, that's actually the top of this blade section. If I was really keen, I could also grab these two and extrude. There's no real need to do this, it's just sort of being a bit more pedantic. Actually, before I bring those up, I would just bring them a little bit up and scale just a touch. Scale that way, and then a little bit more this way, and then extrude again. It just creates that extra bit of detail. It looks cool. Bring that right up. And might just, all I did there was undo, so I've got these faces at the top selected. I'm just going to wireframe so you can see, and I'm just going to scale them out a little bit. Because you can see it's intersecting with the original blade. So if I bring them out. Probably also need to grab all of these verts in here, and also just scale out a touch. So not exactly the same as this reference image, but I don't care. It looks cool, and we're just making a bit of fan art. Just final step is this hilt is still set as a NURBS, so I can just go into modify, convert NURBS to polygons options, and make sure it's set to quads. And I'm going to click count, and 200 polys is probably about right, so I'll hit apply. And we can see if I edit, delete all history, it's created a polygonal version of that hilt. And I might just delete that original. Okay, so that's essentially the finished Zelda Master Sword. So if you're doing this for homework for JMC, you'll be fine for the modelling week to stop here. But if you're enjoying this, and if you want to take this a lot further, check out the next video. I'm going to unwrap this and texture it, so we'll end up with the finished sword. It should look pretty cool. Thanks for watching.